Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. There was this faint buzzing, like a phone vibrating on a hard surface. I thought maybe it was coming from outside, but it was too close. I blinked into the darkness and reached out beside me. Her side of the bed was cold. I listened again. Buzz, pause, buzz, then silence. I got up, half asleep, and walked toward the living room. That's when I saw it, her phone, glowing on the coffee table, next to her purse. She wasn't supposed to be home tonight. She told me she'd be staying with her coworker, Brielle, because of an early morning event near her office. But her purse was here. Her phone was here. She wasn't. I didn't even have time to process it because the screen lit up again. Another call. Incoming, Layla. I hesitated. I don't usually answer her calls. My wife always told me Layla was intense, but something in my gut told me this wasn't just a social call. I picked up. I didn't get a hello. I didn't even get a pause. I got one line. She promised she'd tell you tonight, but she left again, didn't she? I said nothing. I stood there barefoot on the cold tile floor, staring at her phone like it was some kind of bomb. Harv. Layla's voice cracked. You need to know where she really is. I gripped the phone tighter. Where? Layla took a deep breath. She's not with me. She never was. She's with him, and they left town hours ago. I told her I wouldn't cover for her again. I'm sorry, but I can't keep lying for her. She blocked you from my number, so I used her phone. She left it on my seat. The room started spinning a little. With who? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Layla hesitated. Her trainer, the guy from the gym, the one she said was too young to be her type. They've been seeing each other for over a year. You were just convenient. I didn't hang up. I didn't scream. I didn't even ask questions. I just listened as Layla told me how long it had been going on, how many nights she'd lied, how often she'd used Layla as an excuse, while Layla sat back, feeling sick about the entire thing. She said she hoped she was doing the right thing. I told her she was the only one who had. When I hung up, I didn't know what to do with my hands. I stared at her purse for a long time. It was open just enough for me to see a folded piece of paper inside. I pulled it out. It was a receipt. 2 plane tickets. Different names. Neither of them mine. I stood there for what felt like hours, holding that crumpled receipt like it was evidence from a crime scene. My fingers trembled as I smoothed it out again, staring at the bold black print. 2 one-way tickets to Phoenix. Departure earlier that evening. Passenger names? Hers and someone named Maddox Dean. Maddox. I'd never heard that name in my life. It wasn't a coworker, not a family friend, not anyone she'd ever mentioned in passing. But apparently it was someone important enough to fly across the country with. Someone she didn't mind being seen with on a paper trail. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table and break every glass in the cabinet. But instead, I sat down on the floor like a ghost, phone still in my hand, her glowing screen dimming every few seconds as if mocking me. That was the thing. I didn't feel anger at first. Just stupid, embarrassed. Like the world had been laughing at me behind my back and I'd only just now caught on to the joke. I opened her phone. No passcode. She used to tease me about how honest couples don't need secrets. I used to think that was sweet. Now it felt like a setup. Like she never bothered locking it because she didn't think I had the guts to look. She was right. Until tonight. The first thing I checked was her messages. Not ours. Those were the usual short responses. Okay. Sure. Not now. I scrolled through her conversations until I found a thread labeled only with an emoji. A flame. No name. No profile picture. Just fire. I tapped it open. I should have stopped there. But I didn't. What followed was a flood of texts that made my skin crawl. Compliments. Inside jokes. Hotel confirmations. Photos. Not explicit ones, nothing that would violate anyone's privacy, but enough to make it very clear they weren't just talking. Phrases like, next time, don't leave your scent on me smirking face, and, he thinks you're still at Layla's? God, that's almost cute. I had to put the phone down. I stared at the wall for what must have been 20 minutes, feeling like the air had turned thicker somehow. Like the room itself didn't want me in it anymore. Then, I did something I hadn't done in months. I opened my laptop and logged into our shared bank account. That's when the real gut punch hit me. 3 days ago, she transferred over $4,000 to a new external account. Something with a name I didn't recognize. I searched it. It was a travel booking agency. One that specialized in couples getaways, adventure retreats, romantic hot springs packages. Things she always told me weren't her style. Apparently, with him, they were. My stomach turned. My palms were sweating. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like the walls were closing in slowly and deliberately. This wasn't just a fling. This was a plan. A long, carefully constructed escape route. And I was the fool financing it without realizing. She left me with the bills, the rent, the dishes in the sink, and took the fantasy life with Maddox, whoever the hell he was. And the worst part? She didn't even bother deleting the evidence. She knew I wouldn't check. She knew I was too soft to suspect. She knew exactly who I was, and used it against me. But that night, as I sat there in the dark surrounded by glowing lies, something inside me shifted. Not rage, not revenge, not yet, just a quiet, simmering resolve. The kind that doesn't shout, the kind that waits. Because if she wanted to vanish into the night with another man, fine. But she forgot one thing. She left her world behind. And I wasn't going to let her take mine with her. The morning didn't start with sunlight. It started with silence. The kind that presses against your skin and reminds you just how alone you really are. I hadn't slept. Not really. I dozed off for maybe 20 minutes with the glow of her phone screen still burning behind my eyelids. When I finally got up, my joints ached like I'd been carrying bricks in my sleep. I wasn't sure what I planned to do. I wasn't even sure if I was going to confront her. All I knew was that something didn't feel finished. Something didn't sit right. And I had a gnawing suspicion that I hadn't seen everything yet. I opened her laptop. She kept it on a shelf in the hall closet, tucked behind board games we hadn't touched in years. It was dusty. It booted up slow. Same no-password confidence. I was starting to realize she didn't hide things because she didn't believe I was capable of finding them. She was wrong. The first thing I opened was her email. It wasn't the obvious stuff. There were no romantic confessions or red flag subject lines. No Maddox in the inbox. But the deeper I dug, the more pieces started falling into place. There was a recurring thread labeled monthly wellness billing. Curious name for a fitness club. I clicked it open. Invoices, appointments, notes, all from a private lifestyle mentorship service. I Googled the company name. Their website said they specialized in transformational coaching and discreet couples exploration getaways. My stomach turned. But what caught my eye wasn't the brochure language. It was the booking note from 2 months ago, addressed to her. It included Maddox's name again, confirming their shared room and dietary preferences. One sentence in particular haunted me. Client has confirmed they'll finalize the divorce shortly after return. I froze. She was planning this. Not wondering. Not hesitating. Not working through it like we were just going through a rough patch. No. She'd scheduled the end of our marriage like it was a dentist appointment. I checked the trash folder. That's when I found the video. I didn't want to click it. I really didn't. But I did. Couldn't not. It was recorded in what looked like a hotel room. Dim lighting, generic artwork on the wall, and 2 glasses of wine on the nightstand. She was talking to the camera. Alone. Smiling. That fake, distant smile she used to give me when she was pretending everything was fine. I just want to remember how I feel before it all changes, she said. I know Harv won't understand. He's a sweet guy, but we're not the same. I feel like I've been living someone else's life, and I finally get to live mine. She laughed lightly. He'll survive. He always does. That last line broke something in me. I closed the laptop. Couldn't watch the rest. Not yet. Not while I was still shaking. I didn't cry, though I thought I would. Maybe I was already too empty. Maybe betrayal dries you out after a while. I looked around the apartment and saw all the things she left behind. Her favorite mug. A sweater she wore when she wanted to feel cozy. A framed photo of us from our anniversary dinner 2 years ago. It all felt like clutter now. background noise in a life she'd already walked away from. But here's the twist. In her carelessness, maybe even arrogance, she left something else behind too. A sticky note, buried in her desk drawer, with scribbled numbers and a passcode. It meant nothing to me at first. But the last 4 digits matched the phone number I didn't recognize in her call history the night she left. That's when it hit me. There was more. Much more. And I was done being in the dark. I held that sticky note like it was radioactive. There was nothing remarkable about it. Just a scribbled string of numbers, an unfamiliar email address, and what looked like a 6-digit passcode. But something told me it mattered. Danica wasn't the type to leave things around by accident. Even if she had grown careless about hiding her affair. This felt different. This felt deliberate, like she had started hiding something in plain sight and assumed I'd never be curious or brave enough to go looking. But I was already past that point. I was already too deep. I went back to her laptop, opened a private browser, and typed the email into every login form I could think of. Gmail. Nope. PayPal. No match. Banking access denied. But when I plugged it into a secure note app called Vault Nest, it didn't just let me in. It welcomed me by name. Her name. The moment the dashboard loaded, I knew I had crossed into territory she never expected anyone to find. There were dozens of saved entries, passwords, voice memos, even a hidden folder labeled Transitions. My heart thudded in my chest like it was trying to warn me, but I ignored it and clicked. Inside were 3 voice recordings and 2 scanned documents. I didn't start with the recordings. I opened the first document. It was a contract. A signed, notarized document. Danica had started the process of creating an LLC, one registered in her maiden name, not mine. The business address was A.P.O. Box in Colorado, the same city on the plane ticket. It was labeled Wellness Revival Consulting. But it didn't take a genius to realize what it really was. A shell. A legal front. Something she could funnel money into while I stayed back home. Clueless. Folding our laundry and wondering why we hadn't had dinner together in weeks. The second document was worse. It was a lease agreement. For a furnished apartment. Also in Colorado. Start date. 3 days from now. I sat back and stared at the screen. That's when it really hit me. Not only was she gone, but she had absolutely no plans to return. She wasn't just leaving me. She had already left. She was building a new life, brick by brick, while I was still hoping she'd bring home Thai food and pretend to laugh at my tired jokes. When I finally opened the first voice memo, I didn't expect it to start with a man's voice. Babe, just got off the phone with the property manager. They confirmed everything's good to go. No need to worry about your name being tied to anything. We're in the clear. Can't wait till you're here for good. Love you. His voice wasn't what I imagined. It was deep, confident, smug, and so familiar. Too familiar. I replayed it 3 times before I realized why. Maddox Dean wasn't just some guy she met on a yoga retreat. He was someone I used to know. Years ago. Back when Danica and I were just dating. He worked as a freelance trainer at the same gym I went to. He'd spot me during my early lifting days. We'd laugh. He even came to our engagement party. I remember him shaking my hand and telling me, "You're a lucky guy, man." He wasn't just a stranger. He had been in our lives. I opened the second voice memo. This time it was Danica. I told Layla I'd come clean, but I doubt he'll figure it out in time. I'll make it quick when I get back. A few tears, some excuses. He'll believe anything if you sound just sad enough. Then she giggled. Giggled. That sound echoed in my skull like glass breaking. The third recording was nothing but her humming and whispering. Just a few more days. I couldn't listen anymore. I slammed the laptop shut and backed away like it was on fire. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to scream. But more than anything, I wanted to know why. Not why she left. That much was obvious. But why she stayed so long just to gut me so cleanly. Because this wasn't a betrayal of passion. It wasn't a one-time mistake. This was planned, choreographed, executed. And she thought I'd never know. But I did now. And I wasn't done. That night I didn't sleep. Again. My body was still, but my mind felt like it was sprinting barefoot through broken glass. I had all the pieces now, her secret account, the recordings, the lease agreement, even the receipts showing she used our savings to buy her new beginning. But there was one thing I couldn't stop thinking about. Why had she left her phone with Layla? Why leave a trail that led directly to her? Felt wrong. Too easy. Danica wasn't sloppy. Not like this. She'd mapped out every step of her escape like she was playing chess, and I was still figuring out the rules. So why make that mistake? Unless it wasn't a mistake. Maybe Layla had done more than just betray her trust. Maybe, for the first time, someone chose me over her. That thought felt dangerous, and I wanted to believe it, because otherwise, I had to accept that even her slip-ups were part of the game. The next morning, I found it. The envelope. It was wedged between a stack of papers in our shared filing cabinet, tucked behind old tax returns and expired coupons. At first, I thought it was junk. No name on the outside, no label, just an off-white envelope with a tiny tear in the corner. Inside were photographs. Printed, glossy, high-quality photos. And not the kind people take for memories. These were surveillance style, shot through windows, across parking lots, from a distance. Each one featured Danica and Maddox, hugging, laughing, sometimes holding hands. In one, she was kissing his neck outside a restaurant while he scrolled through his phone. My stomach clenched. But it wasn't just the content that stunned me. It was the date stamps in the corners. These weren't recent. Some of them were from over a year ago. She'd been seeing him before we even renewed our lease. Before our last anniversary trip. Before the couples counseling she begged me to attend. That dinner where she cried in front of the therapist and said she just wanted us to feel close again. That was 6 weeks after the oldest photo in the envelope. The final photo made my blood run cold. It wasn't her and Maddox. It was me, sitting at a cafe, alone. A coffee in one hand, my phone in the other. Just existing. The photo was taken through the window. Same style, same timestamp layout. I turned it over. One sentence was written in blue pen. He's not suspicious. Yet, I dropped it. That's when it clicked. These photos weren't collected by her. They were collected for her. Someone had been watching both of us. I didn't know if it was Maddox, or a friend, or some private investigator she'd hired to track my movements. Maybe to make sure I wasn't cheating first, or maybe just to cover her own tracks. But the reality settled in like concrete in my chest. She hadn't just planned to leave me. She'd studied me, documented me, turned our marriage into a project, a transition, a quiet erasure of everything we had. That's when something shifted. I wasn't going to fight to get her back. Not anymore. I wasn't going to confront her and ask for answers she'd already rehearsed. I wasn't going to cry into my pillow while she danced around a new apartment with someone who thought I was weak. Instead, I started packing. Not her things, mine. But not in the way you think. Because if she wanted to disappear, so could I. And unlike her, I wasn't going to leave a trace. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not Layla. Not my brother. Not even the landlord. I moved in silence, just like she had, only I didn't need a new man or a vacation to do it. I needed peace. I needed to breathe without the weight of a woman who was rewriting her life by erasing me from it. Danica wanted a clean slate, a fresh chapter. Fine. I'd give her one, with my name blacked out completely. The apartment was still, almost too still. Her absence had turned it into something clinical, like a hotel room after checkout. I knew I couldn't stay there another night. The place reeked of betrayal. Everything I looked at reminded me of how thoroughly she prepared to vanish from my life. But instead of making a scene or demanding closure, I started playing her game. First, I took cash out in small amounts. I didn't touch our shared account again after discovering the travel payments and lease. Instead, I opened a personal account in a different state using my old college address. Something she'd never remember. I redirected my mail, shut down all my social media, and set every email to forward to a burner inbox. I didn't leave notes. I didn't leave clues. Just like her. Then I picked the one person she'd never suspect. My coworker, Carmen. Carmen and I barely spoke beyond passing greetings, but she'd once mentioned her cousin had a cabin near Lake Hemlock, 2 states over. Remote. Quiet. No Wi-Fi. No cell towers. Exactly what I needed. I approached her during lunch and asked if her cousin ever rented it out. She blinked at me, probably confused by the sudden interest, but she handed me the number anyway, said I could pay in cash. I nodded. That was perfect. Within 48 hours, I was packed. I didn't take much. Just clothes, my laptop, some basic essentials, and a printed copy of the envelope with the photos. I left behind everything she'd expect me to cling to. The bed we bought together, the coffee mugs she always complained about, even the Polaroids she taped to the fridge that made it look like we were happy. Before I left, I printed one last thing. A sheet of paper with only 3 words. I learned from you. I left it inside the drawer where she kept her hair ties and vitamins. A place she'd open without thinking. A place she'd expect comfort, not confrontation. Then I locked the door behind me and tossed the keys in the gutter. The cabin was even more secluded than I imagined. No neighbors, just trees and wind and the kind of silence that doesn't demand an apology. The first few hours felt strange, like I was trespassing in someone else's life. But then, it started to feel like mine. I cooked simple meals. I slept without checking the time. I started writing everything down. Dates, memories, her lies, my blind spots, the moment it all unraveled. I needed to see it on paper. I needed to make sense of how a person could smile at you in the morning and sabotage you by night. One morning, as I was sorting through a folder of documents I'd brought, I found something I hadn't noticed before. It was wedged between a medical bill and an old warranty slip. A letter, unopened, addressed to me. No stamp, no return address, just my name. The handwriting was hers. I stared at it for a long time, debating whether to open it or toss it into the fire. Eventually, curiosity won. But I wish I hadn't opened it, because what was inside changed everything again. The paper trembled slightly in my hands as I unfolded it. Not because the air in the cabin was cold, it wasn't, but because I had no idea what I was about to read. After everything Danica had done, part of me expected another manipulation. A final jab, or maybe something calculated, wrapped in sweet words and fake guilt. But what I found was something stranger. Something that made me feel like I was reading 2 letters written by 2 completely different versions of the same woman. It began softly. Harv, if you're reading this, it means I didn't have the guts to say any of it out loud. No excuses, just the truth as I know it from my side. You deserve that, even if I never deserved you. My pulse quickened. Not because of the apology, but because it sounded real. Too real. She went on about how she'd felt like a ghost in our marriage. How she smiled through dinners while her chest felt hollow. How she used to watch me sleep and wonder if I ever saw her. Really saw her, the way she used to want to be seen. She claimed it started with loneliness, not betrayal. That Maddox wasn't some grand plan, but rather an accident that turned into a temptation she didn't have the strength, or maybe the will, to resist. I didn't leave because you weren't enough. I left because I wasn't me anymore. I hated who I'd become. I just didn't have the courage to fix it with you. I wanted to stop reading there. I didn't want sympathy for her unraveling. I didn't want to understand her pain. But then the letter shifted. Her words grew sharper, defensive. But you changed too, Harv. You checked out long before I ever did. You stopped trying. You became quiet and small. You gave up, and I think I resented you for it. You didn't see me because you didn't want to. You just wanted peace. And I wanted fire. That part hurt more than anything, because it was true. I had stopped trying. I had started shrinking myself to keep the calm. I thought silence was better than arguing. I thought making things easier for her was love. But it turns out it just made me invisible. I was mourning someone who may have mourned me first. The final lines, though, undid me. If you ever do leave, really leave, I hope you find something that wakes you up again. Not someone. Not revenge. Just something real. Something that doesn't feel like pretending. No apology. No begging. Just a quiet confession. A map of where we fell apart. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope, not sure what to do with it. It didn't change the facts. She still lied. She still left. She still crafted a life in the shadows and left me to choke in the dark. But something about those words stuck to my ribs like hunger. Not forgiveness, but clarity. It wasn't just her that disappeared from our life. I had too. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. I'd been gone long before she booked that ticket. I kept my head down, kept the peace, became the safe one. And in doing so, I became background noise. That night, I stared at the stars above the cabin and thought about all the times I could have fought harder. For her, for myself, for us. But I didn't. I let the silence grow like ivy. She just happened to be the first one who cut herself free. Still, I wasn't ready to go back. Not yet. Not to the city. Not to my old life. Not even to tell anyone where I'd been. But I knew now that hiding wasn't healing. And reading her letter hadn't broken me. It had shaken something loose. A strange sense of responsibility. Like maybe I could still rewrite what came next, even if I couldn't rewrite what had already been done. The next morning, I packed the letter away in a sealed envelope, labeled it closure, and placed it inside the cabin's old wooden drawer. And for the first time in months, I left something behind willingly. Coming back to the city wasn't triumphant. There was no movie scene return, no vindication. Just a quiet cab ride, a smaller apartment key, and the familiar hum of a world that had kept moving without me. I didn't tell anyone I was back. Not at first. I needed to sit in the life she'd left behind and decide whether I still wanted any part of it. When I walked past our old building, I saw the windows were already different. New curtains, unfamiliar plants. She'd officially moved out. Or maybe Maddox had moved her in somewhere else. I didn't care. For the first time, I didn't care. I wasn't interested in revenge. Not anymore. Because somewhere in the silence of that cabin, between the firewood and the quiet mornings, I found something she couldn't take from me, my peace. I started over slowly. Found a modest apartment with creaky floors and bad lighting. But it was mine. Started freelance work. I reconnected with Carmen. Not romantically, just honestly. She was the first person who saw I wasn't broken, just lost. And that was enough. I signed up for cooking classes. Me, the guy who used to burn microwave dinners. It felt silly at first, but something about learning something new with strangers felt healing. I didn't block Danica. I didn't message her either. One day, months later, I saw she'd viewed my profile. No message. No heart emoji. Just a view. And that told me everything I needed to know. She wondered what happened to me. Maybe she expected a breakdown. Or silence. What she didn't expect was that I would thrive. She left thinking I'd fade. Instead, I grew. That was the last gift she ever gave me. By walking away, she gave me permission to rebuild. Not from bitterness, but from truth. The truth that I mattered. That I still had value. That I could start again, not because I had to, but because I chose to. So no, this isn't a story about heartbreak. Not anymore. It's a story about survival. About rediscovery. About walking into the fire and realizing you were never meant to burn, but to be remade. If you've been through it, it doesn't end where they left you. It begins when you decide to turn the page. You've been watching Reddit Confessions. Thanks for sticking with me through all parts of my story. Now I want to hear from you. What was the most surprising or powerful moment that stuck with you? Was it the envelope, the hidden recordings, or the letter she never sent? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Reddit Confessions. Because sometimes, the most powerful stories come from the quietest voices.